Yes, we can hear you
Okay,
and
can
see
you
you.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. We had a technological problem here. That's what happens when a life is online. So we apologize for the delay. We're here today because we are talking about an extremely important matter, especially for parents and educators. We're going to start with a quote, and then we're going to introduce the speaker. One of the things we want to say, we want to start off with a quote by an American philosopher. So it is when children are learned to read fluently and well, they begin to take flight into whole new worlds as effortlessly as young birds take to the sky. That was said by William James. He was an American philosopher. My name is Eileen Mahman, and I'm going to be working with Kristen Poulton today. My wish, our wish, is may all children learn the gift of reading and savor life to its fullest. We're going to be exploring how to get young children to read. It is not something that we consider lightly. It's absolutely necessary in this world to read. You have to read in order to thrive. I'm going to introduce myself. My name's Eileen Mahman, and that's me. I have 4 children of my very own, and I have been an educator for at least 20 years now, and I work with thousands of children in all different age groups. Reading is fundamental to life. It's fundamental to doing well in school. It's fundamental to forming relationships. It's fundamental to appreciating everyday things. And it's important to become a member of society. I'm going to also introduce Kristen Poulton, my associate. She's working for her doctorate in early childhood education. She and I have devised a program for working with young children, and some of them actually are not very young. Some of them are middle school kids that somehow got through the system unable to read. We find some kids in 6th and 7th grade that don't know how to read. Consequently, they don't know how to write. And by then it's a full-blown problem because they've experienced rejection for very, very long. I'm going to check and see if there's any questions. Now, the way we want to conduct this is we want this to be an open forum. If a mother, a father, a grandparent, an aunt, and uncle, or even a child has a question, please interrupt us, because sometimes if you have a question and we continue, it won't be answered, and we will have a question and answer period. But it's one of those things that we would like you to ask us as soon as you can, so we can get the word out to you. Reading is life, it's literacy. It's just that simple. It's an integral part of your child's social, emotional, and physical development. You cannot go through life without reading. And it's the foundation for everything that follows. You need to read at a grade level and beyond. It's fun, and we have an integrated program. It's imperative for socializing and playing with peers, in any form of communication, problem solving, making decisions, independence, managing money and working, thinking and conceptualizing, and everything is missed if you cannot read, period. Any questions, comments? You're free to make comments now if you choose. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. We have some sobering facts. Reading scores are declining, and they're very alarming in the United States. It could be because we were isolated for 1.5 years due to COVID. It could be because we've had struggling readers that are now more struggling readers, or readers that were at grade level and now they're struggling. We don't know what the answers are, but these are what we found up until 2019. And honestly, they're getting worse. So sobering facts are that only 1/3 of American students are at or above reading proficiency level. And the percentage of students at proficient or reading, it goes down every year. There is a pandemic effect. There's reading loss and learning loss during remote instruction, especially with very young children that are not technologically oriented yet. And it impacts during the pandemic, and we don't really understand what that means yet. But before we go on to the next slide, just take a look at what we're looking at. So if you look at grade 4, from 2017 to 2019, we've dropped. And if you look at grade 8, which is the end of middle school, entering high school a year later, we've got 36% that are not at reading level, that are going down to 34. High school is not easy. It's not going to get easier if you cannot read or you cannot read at grade level. That's what we're finding. We can go on to the next slide. So studies show the impact of reading proficiency on high school graduation. We all want the best for our kids. We all want them to get a good job and get to a good school. No matter where we come from, that's what we want for our children. So if we look at a class of 25 third grade kids, which are probably about 8 years old, we find that among students who read proficiently in third grade, only about 1 in 25 had not graduated high school by age 19. These are statistics. Those are the proficient readers. Most of them did very well. If we look at the basic readers, the ones that are at grade level, among students who had basic but not proficient reading skills in third grade, 9% did not graduate high school. So it goes down a little bit, but maybe it's not as alarming as what I'm going to now mention. Below basic readers, those children that basically give up on reading, among students who had below basic, not proficient reading skills in third grade, a staggering 23% did not graduate high school by age 19 in the United States of America. I'm just going to just let that sit in for a minute. That's a lot of young people that really stop going to high school. When they stop going to high school, it could be any time from 10th to 12th grade. I just want to throw that number out. And Kristen, do you have anything you want to say as far as what I mentioned? Or if not, I'm just going to go on. Because Kristen deals with a lot of the students that we're going to be talking about. Any comments or anything?
I think it's important. Hi, it's Kristen. So I think it's important to look at that reading skills in third grade, because that's a really important part of the piece. Is if these reading skills aren't developed by third grade, that's when that struggling, it starts showing up. It's more apparent. So I just wanted to share that.
No, I appreciate that. And that's catching it at even not at an early age. An early age for catching poor reading is when that parent knows that there's something going on and they're watching it. And that could start in preschool. Okay, so we can go on to the next slide. Just to inform you of what that means, up to 65% of students need structured literacy instruction. So I just want to demystify everything, if I may. Not everything comes naturally to everybody. Math doesn't come naturally to everyone. Reading doesn't come naturally to everyone. Neither does writing or art or music or sports. Sometimes we have to learn it. We could still be good at it, but we have to learn it. It's just because our minds work differently. So there's a certain ladder that we want to look at. So if you think about it, there's really only at the very top of this ladder, only 5% of the population of students read, and they seem to just read effortlessly. They're out there, but they're a small proportion of kids. 35%, which is a lot of us, learn to read relatively easy with some broad instruction. And that's going to be the kid that's in school and they're going to pick it up and they're going to put it together. And that's a lot of students that you're going to find. These students are really at an advantage with a structured literacy approach. What that means is maybe they're not struggling, but having a program that's structured will not hurt them. It will only make them stronger. Now we have another type of student. The 40 to 50% of students learn to read proficiently, but they need code-based, explicit, systemic, and sequential instruction. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with these kids. It just means that their mind needs to be challenged and taught in a different way. But sometimes we don't pay attention to it. Sometimes it's expensive, and sometimes nobody really even identifies it. And honestly, a lot of these kids are super smart. They don't talk about it. They don't bring it up, and they find strategies to memorize, not read, but to memorize. Memorizing is not reading. They get through each year memorizing something which they actually haven't learned. And then we have another proportion of students, which is about our 10 to 15%. They're dyslexic students. They have to learn to read code-based, explicit, systemic, sequential, diagnostic instruction, and they need repetitions. I do want to say that all the students we mentioned, it has nothing to do with their intelligence. It has nothing to do with their capabilities. It's just how their mind works. We all learn differently. We all have assets and strengths. For those children that do not read naturally or relatively easy with broad instruction, we have a program to help them. And I'm going to defer to Kristen again, because she and I spent a very long time putting this together, and she may want to make a comment right about now.
Hi, so I believe that our program, it really focuses on that 40 to 50%. It can help children in the 10 to 15%, but it's structured, it's explicit, it's systematic, and it's sequential, the program that we created. So it's that structured literacy approach that's essential, that science of reading that's essential for reading.
Right. So we're going to take a look at 2019. The reason we're at 2019 with all these numbers is because we haven't made any real new numbers yet, because even though we're in 2021, we took a little break. We were in our homes, we had to deal with COVID. So we want accurate results. So we will be getting those as children test and get back to school. So this is what we've got at the moment. It could be worse than what we think. I'm hoping it's better, but I have a feeling it's not going to be much better than what we see. So back in 2019, 34% of those children lack the basic skills needed to learn how to read. So they come to kindergarten and they're not reading. Oftentimes, these kids are not reading at the end of kindergarten. The number that upsets me greatly is that 65% of all fourth graders read below grade level. That contributes to 8,000 students dropping out of high school every day. So I'm also going to throw out that it's not really about bad habits. It's about lack of confidence and feeling defeated. Nobody does something all the time if they're not good at it and they keep getting hit and pushed down. So we go through avoidance. If we're not good at reading and no one knows that we're struggling with reading, we keep it a secret and we don't read. And that becomes a serious problem when the reading gets more complicated. As we get older, it's expected to get more complicated as our education moves along. So a lot of these kids are very quiet about it. And a lot of times it's hidden. And if they're getting to the next grade level, can I just go back a slide? Maybe, yeah. And if it's hidden, no one really knows. We all want to I just want to quickly say that 35% of students graduate high school at or above reading proficiency. That's 37%. That's less than half. Okay, thank you. Now we can go on to the next slide. I just want to talk about some of the signs that your child is struggling. The parents, the family, the child knows it first. The first thing you want to do is you take our assessment. We can decide if your feelings are realistic. Is your child struggling? Do they mistake letters and sounds? Do they not remember letter sounds like as an apple? Do they confuse look-alike letters like B, D, and P? Or sound-alike letters like F, V, or D and T? Do they struggle with rhyming words like bat, cat, mat? Or does the student have difficulty hearing the ending sounds? Are sight words not automatic, whether they learn it in school or whether they're also learning it at home or whether they're homeschooled? Does this child admit word endings such as S, ing, or ed? Is there difficulty with what they have read or comprehension? Because the child will memorize and not read. So if they memorize it, they can repeat it to you, but they couldn't read it again at another point when the words have changed. Does your child spell the name word differently within the same document? So does dog look like dog at one point or G-O-D at another point? Does your child avoid reading even when the books are brand new and colorful and pretty and you bought them as a gift? Are there problems with reading aloud? And is your child secretive?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Does your child struggle with verbal directions and keeping up in school? And does your child confuse sequences of events in a story they have read? So for something like this, is this first, second, or third? Do we have a problem with sequencing? My name's Eileen Mahman. I believe in reading. I believe in education. I'm now going to give the next part to Kristen. She's going to take you through another part of this webinar. I don't see any hands, but then again, maybe I'm not looking in the right place, but you are free to stop us, question us, challenge us, whatever you'd like to do. The bottom line is we're here for this child. We want kids to read. Is it possible? It is possible to get the child that never read before to read. And that's a fact. So I'm going to give it to Kristen.
Hi, my name's Kristen, and I'm an early childhood special ed teacher. I've taught fourth grade. I've been a special ed teacher in elementary. And like Eileen shared, I'm a doctoral student in early childhood special ed. And this project has been really dear to my heart. I didn't read until second grade. I was held back. I was a struggling reader. I also had a speech, I also received speech services at the time. So because of that, struggling with reading, this is dear to my heart. So like Eileen shared earlier, not every child reads naturally. But But this program is a gift. It's like a teacher friend of mine. I was sharing with her this project, and she said, so you took all the wonderful components of the science of reading and you put it into a nice package. And I said, yes, it's all here. Everything is here. Eileen also shared about the statistics of the third grade. So when students, by the time third grade hits, if they're struggling with reading, they will struggle for the rest of that time in education, because all those basic foundations of reading they had missed. And it might have just, and no one knows why they missed it, but they have been missed, and our assessment will help with that. So let's go on to the next slide. Sorry. Wait, first, does anyone have any questions about that? You can always type in the chat also, and I can see if something comes up, if you feel more comfortable sharing questions over chat. Okay, so we can get children to read. The people in this program, their sciences, the educators, the commitment, the consistency from teachers, parents, and students, everyone, we can get the students to read. So elements of reading, we target all types of learners. They could be readers that have lost confidence over the time. They might be children who are homeschooled. They might be students with disabilities. They can be English language learners. They can still be readers, because there's different levels in this program. There's actually 5 different levels. And the program is based on that phonemic awareness, that the phonemic sounding, the play with sounds, the play with rhymes, that part that some students miss those early years. So good readers will lead to good writers, to good students, to good grades, to adjusted children, and then adults, and just people who will love to read.
Can I just interrupt?
Oh, yes.
So one of the things that is really super important about our program is we do not put children in a grade level course. That may not be their reading level. We assess them to put them in a reading level course. They could be third graders that start at a very low level. They would not know that. We know that. You know that. We don't put them necessarily at their grade level. That doesn't mean anything. We put them at their reading level. That's where they need to begin. That's where we start. I just wanted to make that a point, because we get them up to their grade level, but it may start from the bottom up. Okay, so that's an interesting concept. I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's a good one. That's a good point. Because if you do have a child in a public school or private school and they do reading, they'll have reading assessments like DRA level 1, and that's equivalent to their grade level in the school system. But this program, like Eileen said, the levels don't correlate to their grade level that they might be attending. So this is how this program works. The first step is an assessment. And the very first assessment assesses for those basic foundational skills. Does your child know letter names and letter sounds in random order? As a teacher, and I was also on an MTSS team, and some of the people here might have heard of that before. That's a multi-tiered system of supports. When children are struggling, they'll go to a team and the teachers will talk about interventions. But one thing I noticed is with 3rd and 4th graders who are struggling with reading, no one ever really looked at if they knew those basic foundational skills. Do they know their letter sounds? And that's a key component that can tell you a lot. So we start with that. Then we go to rhyming, which is another foundational skill. Beginning sounds, ending sounds, and the magic E. So let's say a child comes in and takes the assessment, and right away we know they know their letters and letter sounds. We would go to the next assessment. We're not going to have students struggle through assessments. We just want to know where their supports are needed. So after they have assessment, then that's when they'll get into it. They'll be placed into a level. Level 1 is at novice level. It's at learning those phonemic sounds every single time we meet, playing games over Seesaw, doing activities that appear the same every single time to get rid of that anxiety, so that students feel confident and they know what's going to happen next, so they know what to learn. It's fun and fast, and if a student is struggling, there's a time for a quick support. So there's no like that feeling of defeat doesn't exist, because they're constantly being supported in different interventions in the tutoring session. Each level is 10 weeks. It's twice a week they will meet online for 45 minutes. And then the other week that they don't meet, they'll be giving Seesaw activities. And you might be familiar with this program. It's an online platform for students to have individual activities in areas that they might need more support in. Like, for example, if a child is having is struggling with CVC words, that's consonant, vowel, consonant, like the word cat, you can put an interactive activity for the student to do on their own, on their iPad or even a phone. And then it will go to the tutor. The tutor can record themselves explaining it. The student can even record themselves doing the activity, so the tutor can see where the parts that they need the supports. So that's how the program works. And then after, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to say, it's very, very supportive of each and every child. And what that means, what Kristen was saying, was that we're not going to frustrate anybody. We're not going to frustrate anybody when they're taking an assessment. If they're not mastering something, we just move on, because we really got the answer. We don't need to put the child through any kind of discomfort. When your child enrolls in our program and starts with us, again, they're going to be challenged, but it's very, very reinforced. They don't move on until mastery. So they can't fall behind, because they're not going to go anywhere until they master it. Then they own it. No one is going to frustrate a child and make it worse for them than it already is. We will challenge them. And then when they master it, we move forward. So it's extremely reinforcing, and they feel really good about it. I just wanted to throw that in there.
And on that line, there's formative assessment that tutor is doing throughout that tutoring session through those Seesaw fun activities. And at the end of each session, there's a full group Seesaw online activity. And then the tutor will collect data on that formative assessment. The students don't know they're being formally assessed. They think they're playing a game. And then that way that tutor can send out explicit Seesaw activities to reinforce skills, etc. So it's very supportive. It's not like, oh, you got that wrong. It's more of like, oh, look, you do an IB for E except after C. Now remember that story, and then the students put it in. So I just wanted to share that too. It's very supportive. It's not a threatening situation. And then, like Eileen said, each level has a pre-assessment and post-assessment. The first assessment that your child will have will be their place of level. And then once they're in that level, they'll have just a quick pre-assessment to know where they're at and to show growth at the end. So you'll constantly know if your student is growing. You can also see the Seesaw and make comments. You can record yourself, you can type things in, you can like it. It's just a wonderful platform for everyone to be involved. Going back to that, this is a full involvement of everyone. So,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. So one of the things we want to say about that is, if your child after 10 weeks does not master the skills, we will repeat it for them. It's not like in a school district where, okay, first grade is over, second grade is over, it's time to move on. We have to give your place to someone else. If your child does not master the material in 10 weeks, only you and I know that, and that child will be given it again for reinforcement. So when that child moves on, they've already created that skill. They have it. I just wanted to make mention of that. No one is rushing your child, and no one knows how long it's going to take. That's another important factor.
Mm-hmm. And the setup of each tutoring session builds for success. So let's say your child has to redo or for supports, we'll do a level again. That's okay. The seesaw activities will be different, but the exposure to that skill will be something that they know. So that gets rid of that anxiety that stops us from learning. They're going to feel successful because they're going to know what comes next, what's going to be asked of them. Okay, right now we're going to do our sentences. So I need to listen to the tutor say, the cat sat on the mat. Okay, I'm going to repeat it. The cat sat on the mat. Then I'm going to write it and I'm going to show it. So it's like this routine. We can go to the next screen. Sorry about that. I just want everyone to just know it's all supportive. So here we go. Here's some tips. Monitor your child closely for any reading and intervene immediately, but make it fun. Like, for example, if you start noticing your child isn't, when they're reading, they're not saying the ending sounds, like in cat, they might just say cat or things like that. Just pay attention to those and intervene and say, oh, that's an ending sound. For example, our tutoring sessions begin with Haggerty. So the tutoring sessions are built on Haggerty, Kilpatrick, and Orton Gillingham. So all of those major components of the science of reading. It's not just a sit and get tutoring session. They're up and moving and writing, and it's just a really interactive. So if you do these tutoring sessions, that will also help you as a family caregiver to know how to interact with your child while they're reading, because that doesn't come naturally either, right? So that's something we all need to learn. Another great person to consult is your child's teacher. They have to do these reading assessments beginning, mid, and end of the year. And sometime at parent-teacher conferences, they go over them and we might not know what they're talking about. It might be really unfamiliar, but once you're in this program, what that teacher is talking about will become familiar, and you'll understand what they're saying to you about their child and their reading. Find supports and do your research. Support your child at home. Reading those phonemic games, letter sounds, names, rhymes, read, listen, and observe, and seek evaluation and assessment as needed. You know your child. So talk to them and evaluate how you feel your child's reading is.
I just want to also make a point. As a parent, you want the best for your child. You know your child and you live with that child. Trust your gut. If something is not right or something seems wrong, whether this is your first child and you've not had experience with reading before with young children, this is your middle child or your last child, you know, pay attention to those signs, you know, trust that gut and say, I need to go further with this, because you know.
And then the next slide. So first, all word elements are broken down into smaller, manageable pieces. That's what elements of reading. This is what this program does. It breaks it all apart. And I always think of the science of reading like math or any type of science. We need to break it apart and figure out how it works. And reading is a process with many different interacting components. And we want your child to read as much as you do. Second, we have the passion, the patience, the tools, and the experience to teach your child. And third, we believe in relationship building. We will challenge, but never frustrate. We believe your child can read. And we love children, we love reading. We are devoted to the education of your child. And then
I think this is a great time to kind of take a break, like let our audience share with us anything. Hopefully nobody out there is shy, and hopefully we've got enough, viewership that people are listening to what we're saying.
Should we stop sharing the screen so we can see each other and ask the questions?
Yeah.
Or we
So
can keep it
Summit,
up
you
too?
might want to take the screen away so we can actually face people, and we can see our faces. And thank goodness we're not in masks, so we can actually see what we all look like these days, which is lovely. So Summit, you might want to take that down. Thank you. Okay. So here we are. I want to first of all thank everybody for listening, and sorry for the late start. Do we have any questions? We seem to have a bunch of people out there. If you don't have any questions, we can definitely get some people to ask. Okay, so I see a question out there. And the question is, how long will this take? And thank you for asking it for us. We don't have any answers for that. We can't, it's like taking your child to a doctor. We don't know how and when you're going to get better. We do know that we've got the ability to help, and we do know that we will do everything we can. If it goes according to our program, and each program is 10 weeks, and your child is doing well in our program, it would be 5 times 10 is 50 weeks. And that would be the ideal situation. When your child leaves after 50 weeks, they will be reading. And the good news is they will be writing. Any other questions out there? When can you start? Okay, I got another question. When can we start? We can actually start whenever you take the assessment. We will evaluate it with suggestions and recommendations, and your child can start whenever you have your schedule permitting. So it could run according to your child's schedule and your child's needs. I don't think any other program could be that specific. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, we have some questions of our very own that we could use. So Summit, you might want to put back our PowerPoint here, and then we can ask some questions that we kind of assumed you may want to know. And we're getting there. Okay. I'll take 2 and you take 2, Kristen. So how is the Elements of Reading program unique and effective? It was designed by 2 educators that are passionate and know children. I have a double master's degree. I've been teaching for 20 years. I have 4 children of my own. And I too had a struggling reader that is reading and completed his master's degree in statistics. And can read anything that is necessary. And, we get kids to read, and that's as simple as it gets. What kind of reading improvement can be expected, and how long will it take? I kind of touched on that. It can take as long as it takes or as short as it takes. If you have a child enrolling in a late part of the program, it's obviously going to take shorter. Oh, thank you. I have a question. Is this a Zoom class for the kids? It is. It's a Zoom class, but they don't need to be technologically advanced, because Seesaw is an ongoing platform that works with very young children. So your child does not know how to type. All your child has to do is give us their eyes and ears, and we will do the rest. We work with handicapped children that are not verbal. We get them to use their hands. We work with children that are sight impaired. We get them to use tactile. We want kids to read. It's for everybody and anybody. It is a Zoom class, only because right now we're still kind of in front of the kids with a screen. That may change over time, but now we're more efficient that way. And that's the only reason. It is designed for the young child. Your child doesn't have to know cursive. Your child doesn't have to know how to type. Your child doesn't have to do any of those things. All we want is for your child to read. It's just that simple. I'm going to let Kristen take the others.
And as Eileen said, your child, all they need is a whiteboard and a marker and a microphone, just like we're doing right now, because the tutor is going to share the screen and they're going to unshare the screen and they're going to have cards and they're going to interact and then they're going to share screen again. So it's just very interactive. So, yep, whiteboard, marker.
And I'm sorry, I didn't ask the last part of the question. I didn't see it. Where are we located? I'm located in California. Kristen is located in Colorado. Our tutors are located all over. We've got a tutor in California. We've got a tutor in Oregon. You just need that whiteboard. We don't need any demographics.
And that's also for the assessment. So the assessment is also online, like a Zoom. The person who will be giving the assessment will share a screen. They'll ask questions. So it's just also, the assessment's very interactive too. Let's see. So how will I know if my child is improving? How does someone share progress with parents? Oh, that's a good one. So you'll know that your child is improving when you start hearing them playing the games at home. That is one of the most amazing things. When you start seeing them, what they've learned in the tutoring session, they're doing in their everyday, they're learning it.
And you know, sometimes it's not going to be academic improvement. Sometimes your child may pick up a menu and be able to order something and put together hot dog or hamburger, or actually tell you what they want because it's listed on the menu. Your child may be able to find words. Your child may make a friend at school because they have the ability to communicate and talk. Your child may raise their hand for the first time. So this is not only academic, you're going to see it before we will.
Mm-hmm. And also not only words, but like if they're at that starting point, they'll start noticing letters and they'll say, hey, that letter's in my name. Oh, that's the letter C. My friend also has that letter in their name. They'll start talking more about it because they have that confidence.
Right.
So that's one way you'll know they're improving. Now with our program, you'll know they're improving through the seesaw activities and through that pre and post assessment and those formative assessments.
Right.
And that's how we also can share progress. Like I had shared before about that seesaw platform. I always explain to it, it's like a Facebook for just the tutor and the family. So like an activity will show up where, like, let's say there's like, they have to sort words that begin with the sound ah and the sound wa. And they'll sort the letters and they'll record themselves saying the letter and sorting them. Then the tutor can hear it, can talk about it. And then you'll see as a parent how your child is progressing on those activities. Are they more confident on it? One time I was teaching a summer program, and by the end, these students were just completing these seesaw activities and just working together. And it was so much fun. They had no idea that their scores were going up, like in this program. So that's how you'll know. Sorry, go ahead, Eileen.
No, that's okay. And I have a funny story that one of our children started to read, and the parents said it was a pretty talkative child to start with. So the kid would talk a lot. And then what would happen was, we know that the parents said, oh my goodness, it's like it's all coming together, because now that the child was not only talking, they were rhyming all day. So they would find hop, shop, not, and they would be playing all these games, but the child would play the games all day. It wasn't like they were playing the games because it was just making sense. So I had a mother say, this is great, but how do I get my child not to do this from the minute that I wake up until the minute I go to sleep? So we didn't know if that was, just something to be aware of, but your child will start I don't know, synthesizing all this. And if your child is a talkative person to start with, you may start to see this initially, but I think it's going to kind of wane over time. But yes, your child is improving.
What is the youngest age?
Yes, I would say 2 or 3.
Yeah, because the first beginning part, that first assessment, that level 1, well, I don't want to say level 1, sorry, the novice part, that is playing with that alphabet, the sounds, the phonemic sounds.
Yes.
So, and that's a great part for, like, if you have a kindergartner who hasn't been in school because we were all at home, like online school last year, that would be a great, if you're seeing holes, that this would be a great program for that, because we're filling in those holes that were missed. Not that I'm saying that there's holes because we were online, but some students, they just weren't familiar with the online platform and things like that. So
right. So the child, I guess, broadly speaking, can start in preschool. When you notice that there's something of concern, that's when it's a good time to start. I'm also going to say that if you notice there's a concern in 6th grade, now's a good time as any.
mm-hmm.
So not just the youngest child. We will even work with English language learners that come and they don't know English and they have to learn phonemic awareness. There's no age. It's when reading is a problem. I think we're going to, if there's any other questions, please shoot it to us. So Kristen and I want to thank you for viewing. We're parents, we're English teachers, we're committed, we're a talent nook. We always believe in going backwards before we go forwards. You can't go forwards without filling in what you need to fill in. We also believe in the concept of it takes a village. I wrote this quote, and I think it summarizes basically the way that I viewed my own children's education, and the way that I approach the students I work with. Success is value that is assigned to mastery. With community, parental, teacher, student, and peer support, we aim to reach the entire child and attain lifelong results. Learning is continuous. I'm learning something every day. I always learn from my students. Kristen is still in school. Results, success, and happiness through education, and that's what we're looking for. I, really want to reach out to you. Can your child read? And the answer is yes. I don't see any other questions. We're going to open that up for just a moment. While you're thinking about a question, I want to thank Kristen for her time and her expertise. I want to thank Summit for putting this together. And if there's no other questions, we're going to be signing off. And again, please, if your child is struggling, we have the tools to help. Thank you for joining us.